Long before Cole Judson ever stepped foot in it, the barn had started responding. Rain slipped through warped shingles, pooling on split boards. One plank lifted, barely. Underneath, red paint still shone like new. Then came the rhythm, no rat, no nail. A pulse not made for human ears. The pulse stopped, but the plank still rose, gears grinding under the wood, as if some barns sag. This one watched. Cole Judson didn't say much at the auction. He simply raised his hand, once, when the lot was called. No one else bid. Not even as the price slid down past $1. Not even when the auctioneer coughed, paused, and said, "Going for 30 cents. Last call." The barn had stood on the edge of Warren's Hill for over 60 years, unloved, unsold, and mostly unspoken of. A patch of land nobody farmed. No kids snuck into it. No graffiti marred its side. Locals didn't even joke about it. They just let it rot. Cole arrived 2 weeks before the auction, renting a trailer on the edge of town. He asked few questions, paid in cash, and worked evenings doing odd mechanical fixes out of his truck. Folks at the diner pegged him for a war vet or a man with a past. But no one had the nerve to ask which. They mostly watched. "He bought what?" someone asked over coffee the morning after. "That red-roofed tomb up on Split Pine?" Tom asked, chewing on a toothpick. "Place eats people's luck," said Marla from behind the counter. "Always has." Tom smirked. "Maybe he's got some to spare. Or maybe he likes broken things." That afternoon, Cole walked the perimeter of the barn for the 3rd time. He kept his steps quiet. The place didn't creak, it listened. Long stalks of brown grass leaned away from it in the wind. Even birds veered at the last second, changing course mid-flight as if pulled by a magnet. The structure looked worse up close, a sagging roof, splintered boards, rusted seams. But when Cole opened the doors, thick, groaning with effort, the air inside hit him like something preserved. Not musty. Just still. Like the breath had been taken out decades ago and never returned. The red plank was near the center, surrounded by its more aged, rotted companions. The others bowed and warped. This one remained stiff, solid, and clean, as though it had been replaced last week. He didn't touch it, yet. Instead, he walked the inside perimeter, counting beams and watching for signs of rot. Everything looked ready to fall but somehow didn't. It was like the structure obeyed something unseen. Some hidden command that kept it standing despite itself. That night, as the sun dipped and the light turned orange through the open slats, Cole returned. He brought no tools, just a folding chair and a flashlight. He didn't sit. He just watched the floor. The barn didn't move. Until it did. A whisper of motion, barely audible, like a joint shifting in its socket. The red plank rose, not much, but enough. Enough to see that it didn't lift like wood. It flexed. Cole knelt, breath held. No sound came from beneath. Not this time. But the air had changed. He stayed like that for a long minute, face inches from the slats, waiting for something. The flashlight flickered once, not out of battery, but like a brief interference. Static in the air. And then, slowly, gently. The plank bowed inward, as if something below was draining the breath from his lungs. Anything beneath remembered how to move. The plank didn't creak. It called back. Cole returned at sunrise, flashlight in one hand, crowbar in the other. The barn groaned under his boots like it resented the intrusion. Everything inside was still, but the air felt expectant, like waking up in a room where someone's been watching you sleep. He stood over the red plank. The rest of the floor was dull, cracked gray. This one still held a faint sheen in the right light, untouched by weather, by time. The grain was too even. Too smooth. He wedged the crowbar under its edge, slowly easing it up. There was no squeal of nails, no tear of wood, just a soft click. The plank lifted clean. Underneath it wasn't dirt. Not fully. It was pressed soil over metal, something large, flat, and painted the same red as the plank. A square plate maybe 4 feet wide, set perfectly into the earth. Cole knelt. On the upper right corner, a tarnished brass plate read MH43 Delta. No screws. No hinges. No handle. Just a seam around the edge and that single identifier. He stared for a moment. Then knocked. A single tap, echoing down through the metal. Hollow. Faint. He waited. Then, 4 taps. Crisp. Uneven. Intentional. Cole blinked. He knocked again. 2 taps. Waited. 3 short. 2 long. He froze. That wasn't echo. That was a response. He pulled out a penlight from his back pocket and clicked it on. The metal plate glistened faintly with condensation. Not cold. Not warm. Room temperature, but too consistent. His fingers hovered just above the brass tag. Something about it felt wrong. Like it wasn't just old, it was holding something in. He pulled out a notepad from his coat. Scribbled the pattern. 3 dots. 2 dashes. His hand shook. M, he said under his breath. He tried again. 1 knock. Pause. Another. Pause. The plate responded, 2 dots. 1 dash. Am I, he whispered. My name. He reached out and touched the metal surface. It pulsed. Not visually, not with light or vibration, but something subtle, something internal. Like the beat of a heart trapped beneath a floorboard. He jerked back, eyes wide. The hatch hummed faintly, like breath vibrating inside hollow metal. Cole stood fast. His head swam. He backed away 3 steps, then 4. He didn't run. Something told him running would make it worse. From the barn's rafters, dust drifted down in straight lines. Not floating. Falling perfectly, like gravity was stronger here. Cole looked down at his boots. They hadn't moved, but he felt taller. Or maybe the floor had sunk. No. Not sunk. Breathed. This thing wasn't buried. It was sealed. He circled the hatch one more time, trying to keep his breath even, trying not to speak out loud, the thought pressing in from every direction. Not a cellar. Not a trapdoor. Not a bomb shelter. Something else. Something thinking. And worse. 3 dots. 2 dashes, M. The start of his name, hammered in hollow metal. It opened slower than a wound. Cole didn't sleep that night. He lay still in the trailer's metal silence, staring at the ceiling while his thoughts circled the sound of the hatch replying. Morse code, his name. The implication burrowed deeper with each hour. At dawn, he packed with precision. Flashlight, voltmeter, insulated gloves, socket wrench, notebook. He added one thing not on the list, a shovel. The barn greeted him with silence. No birds, no bugs. The usual drone of distant tractors and wind-tossed trees felt pushed back, like noise had learned to stay away. He approached the hatch slowly, watching the dust particles hover in columns of light, too still, too precise. His boots crunched on gravel, not wood. The red plank still leaned against the far wall, removed cleanly the day before. The hatch waited where he'd left it, flush with the dirt, as if nothing had ever been disturbed. Cole crouched and switched on the voltmeter. He touched the probes gently to 2 opposite corners of the hatch. For a moment, the needle didn't move. Then, a slow twitch. He adjusted, narrowed the range. The needle jumped. Then again. Pulse. Not electricity. Something rhythmic. Organic. He tapped the hatch once. Nothing. He tapped again, 2 quick raps, then a pause. 3 dots. 1 dash. A new pattern. He scribbled the code down, hands beginning to tremble. Every message was different. Every one a reply. He reached forward and touched the hatch with a gloved hand. The metal was warmer than the air. He exhaled, shifted his weight. Suddenly, a burst of heat. Sharp. Dry. Like standing too close to an open circuit. He flinched and pulled back, but the hatch didn't change. Then the voltmeter began stuttering, fast, erratic, like a heartbeat under duress. Cole's own pulse started to match it, and he hated that he noticed. Hated that his body wanted to sink. He was still staring at the hatch when he heard boots crunch behind him. "You opened it?" Tom's voice was low, less skeptical now. He stepped into the barn's half-light, shoulders stiff. Cole stood. "Not yet." Tom stared at the hatch. "You sure you want to?" Cole hesitated. "I need to know." Tom didn't move. But his voice changed, "Close it now, or you'll never close it again." Cole turned back. The hatch clicked. Not like a spring, not a button. More like vertebrae shifting. He stepped closer. Dropped to one knee. Another click. This time, the dirt shivered. He leaned down, only inches now. That's when he felt it, a faint tremor under his boots. Like something large was adjusting just beneath the surface. He didn't speak. Didn't move. The hatch clicked again. And then, bolts inside began sliding back, one by one. Not fast. Not mechanical. It sounded deliberate, like a ritual unfolding after years of silence. The final bolt was deeper. Thicker. A slow, echoing clunk. Then, stillness. The seam at the center of the hatch flexed just slightly, not enough to lift, but enough to show that it could, if he wanted it to. Would you keep testing, or walk away? The hatch clicked, and then bolts inside began sliding back, one after another, as if something had been waiting. Truth hummed through his bones. Everyone else heard lies. By the next morning, Warren's Hill had found its 2 favorite things, a new mystery and someone else to carry it. Cole's name circulated in fragments, the guy with the barn, the one who opened it, the drifter who don't talk much. No one said it with cruelty, just caution. Like naming it might spread it. At the diner, theories boiled fast and cheap. Missile silo, said a man in overalls. Government stuff. Cold War bunker. No, no, countered Marla. It's a cryochamber. They froze some poor soul in there for science. Or punishment. Tom didn't speak. He just stirred his coffee slower than usual, eyes locked on the salt shaker like it might move. That afternoon, Cole sat cross-legged beside the hatch, barefoot, motionless. He wasn't testing for voltage anymore. Not really. The voltmeter sat next to him, but he'd stopped watching it. He didn't need to. He could feel it now. The hum wasn't sound anymore. It had dropped into the floor, into his body. From heel to spine, it vibrated with his heartbeat. He breathed slow, sinking with it. Not trying to control it. Just follow. The barn was quiet, but not still. The planks above him creaked in strange rhythms, not caused by wind or heat. Almost like response. He had started to suspect the building itself was an interface. The hatch hadn't opened yet, not fully. After the bolts slid back, it had paused, like it was waiting. Not for power. For permission. Tom visited once more. He stood just inside the threshold, hands in his pockets, and said nothing for almost a minute. Then, "I don't think it's buried." Cole didn't answer. Tom continued. "I think it was placed. Like, intentionally. Not by us." Cole nodded. Tom left. The next night, Cole woke at 2:14 a.m. without knowing why. He sat up, barefoot on trailer tile. Stillness. Then he noticed it, the faintest vibration running through the floor, rising up his legs like an old memory. He stepped outside. Cold wind. Empty field. Silent barn. But his body still vibrated, bone by bone. In town, the rumors thinned down to two competing theories. Cold War vault, built during the Cuban panic, sealed after a malfunction, never logged properly. Alien sarcophagus, a government test site for extraterrestrial contact, hidden in plain sight, forgotten until now. Cole knew neither were right. It wasn't forgotten. It had been waiting. And now it had chosen him. He scribbled in his notebook. "It's not responding to the tools. It's responding to me." Another line. "It's not a relic. It's not a bunker. It's a listener." He didn't eat for a day. Maybe two. Inside the barn, the hum deepened again. The hum deepened, rattling the nails in the walls, like something waking bone by bone. Vaults are built to protect. But this one remembered him. On the fourth morning, the hatch rose, on its own. Not a lurch. Not sudden. It lifted with eerie smoothness, silent except for the faint kiss of earth releasing its seal. Dust spiraled upward, caught in an updraft from below. The air that rose wasn't warm or cold, it was still. Sterile. Like something made to preserve, not breathe. Cole didn't recoil. He stepped forward, flashlight in hand, and aimed the beam into the square opening. A steel shaft, vertical, lined with ribbed red metal. The interior walls were engraved, no, etched, with faintly glowing glyphs. Like warnings. Like blueprints. He lowered himself slowly, his boots touching down on a landing no bigger than a coffin lid. The shaft yawned deeper, but to the right sat a narrow recessed shelf built into the wall. A folder. A sealed one. Weatherproof. Labeled. Project Nest, Intake ID number 6. Inside, 3 Polaroids. First, an overhead shot of the barn, undated, black and white. The field looked unchanged. Same slanted shadows. Same roads. Same shape of the clouds. Second, a man in uniform. Standing next to a gurney draped in white. Face turned slightly, but familiar. Something about the jawline. Third. Cole froze. He held the third photo in both hands, staring. It was him. Back turned. Head bowed. Standing exactly where he stood 2 days ago, in front of the open hatch. He flipped it over. Dated, last week. The handwriting was fresh. The corner was still curled slightly from drying. He rubbed the ink with his thumb, hard. The ink hadn't even dried. His hand trembled. He looked again. Same boots. Same jacket. Same scar on the back of his neck. But the angle, it was shot from above. Not from the rafters. From the sky. He clawed at the date, trying to smear it, hoping it would smudge and reveal the trick. It didn't. Behind the photo, one more object. A thin plastic card. Printed across its front. Authorized, Maxwell Judson. He stared at the name. His grandfather. The man his father refused to talk about. The one erased from family stories. The name struck like a nail through his chest. He stumbled backward, Polaroids clutched to his chest, breath caught in the wrong part of his throat. The hatch behind him didn't close. But the glyphs glowed a little brighter now, pulsing red, matching his heart rate. What would you do if you found this? The last photo showed him, back turned, head bowed, standing at the barn. Dated last week. The ink hadn't even dried. The air grew warmer the deeper he went, like something below was alive. Cole didn't return to the barn that night. He didn't sleep either. He sat in his trailer, the Polaroid clutched in one hand, the ID badge in the other. Maxwell Judson. A name that had lived like mold in family silence, blacked out from records, missing from every photo. But now, he had proof. The man existed. And worse, he had authorization. Cole read the name again. The badge felt wrong in his hands, like it belonged to someone watching him read it. By sunrise, the choice had already made itself. The barn was colder this time. But the hatch still stood open. Cole stood over it, the metal breathing faint heat up his legs. The glyphs were dim now, barely glowing. Like the walls were asleep. He climbed down slowly. Each rung vibrated slightly, humming against his palms. Not mechanical. Rhythmic. Like bone. He reached the platform again. The shelf was empty now, the photos gone. His breath caught. He spun his flashlight deeper into the shaft. The beam vanished after 10 feet, swallowed like fog. A second ladder descended further. Cole hesitated. One rung up, and he could leave. He didn't. The second descent took longer. The walls narrowed slightly, pressing sound into sharp, tinny echoes. His own breathing became loud. Too loud. It rebounded back like someone was mimicking him. 20 feet down, the shaft opened into a narrow tunnel, rounded, metallic, lined with more glyphs. A faint red light pulsed from a source he couldn't see. Cole stepped inside. The floor beneath him was soft, not dirt. Some kind of matting, like rubber or synthetic skin. Each step gave a little, and the hum grew stronger. At the end of the tunnel, a door. Not wood. Not steel. Some alloy he didn't recognize, curved at the edges, embedded into the tunnel wall. No handle. No keypad. Just a single palm-sized recess at eye level. He raised his hand without thinking. Before he touched it, the metal rippled. Then, a voice. Faint. Dry. Familiar. It whispered his name. Cole. He froze. The whisper came again, but not aloud. Inside his skull. Same voice. His own voice. He staggered back, slamming into the tunnel wall, flashlight clattering. The door didn't open, but the ripple returned. Like breath against skin. Then the light shifted. Inside the door, a humanoid shape. No features. No face. Just a silhouette behind milky glass, standing perfectly still, as if waiting. Not dormant. Breathing. The chest rose and fell, slow, steady. Cole couldn't look away. The figure leaned forward, just slightly. Then the whisper came again, curled tight behind his ears. Down here, we remember everything. He fled. He didn't climb the ladders, he scrambled, palms slipping on rungs, breath coming in gasps. He didn't stop until he hit the barn floor and slammed the hatch closed with both hands. It didn't lock. But it didn't open either. He sat in the dust, heart hammering, arms wrapped around his knees, until the sun was gone and the barn filled with shadow. The whisper returned, this time curling inside his skull, speaking in his own voice. It wasn't a prison. It was a prototype. And someone left the door unlocked. Cole didn't return for 2 days. He sat in his trailer with the ID badge clutched tight, the whisper of his own voice echoing through memory. It hadn't just said his name. It had known it, used it like a signature. Like permission. He kept the hatch closed, but the pulse never stopped. At night, the trailer floor throbbed faintly beneath his feet, not loud enough to panic, just enough to remind. It had opened once. It could again. On the third morning, he cracked. He walked to the barn before sunrise, face drawn, fists clenched. This time, the hatch didn't need asking. It was already open. He descended quickly, not bothering to check the voltmeter, not flinching at the vibrating rungs. The tunnel was lit now, pulses of dim red tracking his steps, glyphs flickering faintly like they were reading him back. He reached the door and placed his palm against the recess. No ripple. It opened. The metal hissed apart, seamless, silent. Inside, a circular room, maybe 30 feet wide. The walls were lined with cables, pipes, and old terminals flickering with failing green text. Screens displayed data in looping streams, numbers, names, images flickering too fast to catch. In the center of the room stood a console, flat and low, with a cracked screen and a slot where something, maybe the ID card, used to go. Cole stepped closer. It lit up without touch. Across the cracked surface. Project Nest Subject 6 status, inactive. Beneath that. Last entry, M. Judson, July 8, 1962. His breath hitched. He fumbled the badge from his pocket and inserted it. The screen flickered. A recorded message began to play. A man's voice, low and deliberate. If you're seeing this, Subject 6 has exited containment. It was not built to trap a monster. It was built to create one. Cole froze. Nest was designed to enhance signal-based cognition. Information carried by rhythm. By code. 6 attempts. 5 failed. Subject 6 responded too well. We buried it. We were told to forget. But some things don't forget back. The message clicked off. Cole's hand trembled on the console. He backed away, too fast, and bumped into the opposite wall. The light behind him changed. He turned. The figure behind the glass was gone. The chamber door, still open. Then, the console blinked again. Floor activity detected, barn level. Cole spun and climbed, faster this time. The glyphs no longer pulsed red. They pulsed white. He surfaced, breath sharp, dust swirling around him. The barn looked unchanged. Until he saw them. Footprints. Leading from the hatch to the barn door. Fresh. Still wet. Still dripping mud. Cole followed them with his eyes. They didn't lead out. They circled back. Someone, or something, was still inside. He turned fast, flashlight sweeping the dark corners. Nothing. But something had left tracks. And they weren't his. Maxwell Judson. His grandfather. And upstairs, footprints gleamed wet, mud still sliding down the metal stairs. Secrets don't stay buried in small towns. Especially when they start walking. The town noticed when Cole stopped coming to the diner. When his trailer lights stayed off. When someone spotted a strange pattern of footprints in the dirt outside the barn, circling, not leading away. And then came the smell. By the third morning, a foul wind swept in from Warren's Hill. Iron heavy. Rotten sweet. Geometrically wrong. Local deputies were first. They knocked once, then again. No answer. Tom arrived 10 minutes later and waved them off. You won't find anything, he said, quietly. They left. He didn't. Instead, he walked the barn's perimeter and noticed what the others missed. Every nail in the siding was flush, except one. It had pushed halfway out, bent slightly. As if pressure came from the inside. Tom didn't knock. He just stood still, head bowed. Behind him, the wind carried the scent of ozone and dead things. By evening, a black SUV pulled up the gravel road. Unmarked. Dark-tinted. Tires silent. 2 agents. Federal. Not local. They didn't flash badges, but everyone in town suddenly remembered reasons to go home. Tom met them near the barn. "What's in there?" one asked. Tom didn't flinch. "Ask him." "Who?" "Cole Judson. He hasn't left in days." Tom nodded once. "Exactly." The agents entered without waiting. They were inside for 13 minutes. They came out pale and quiet. One of them said, "It's active again." The other replied, "Protocol Nestor is in play. We didn't think it would ever activate again." The next morning, Cole's trailer door hung open. Nothing inside was touched. Except for a single photo sitting on the floor. Another Polaroid. It showed Cole, mid-step, entering a second barn. Different roof. Different trees. Same hatch. Written on the back. Judson Protocol confirmed. Containment relocated. Warrenshill wasn't the only one. Tom drove out that afternoon, past the county line, toward an old field north of Manchester. He parked beside a familiar shape, a barn almost identical to the first. And someone was already there. A man in a long coat stood in the open doorway, back turned, hands clasped behind him. Tom stepped closer. The man turned toward him. Same face as a photo taken in 1962. Unaged. Unchanged. Unblinking. The agent nodded once, stepped inside, and disappeared into the shadows. The barn swallowed him whole. "Would you reveal this to the world, or keep it secret?" The buyer turned toward the camera, same face from 1962, unchanged, and then the feed cut as he stepped inside. Some locks weren't meant to rust. They were meant to remember. Weeks passed. No one in Warrenshill asked about the barn anymore. The field grew quiet again, birds returned, the scent faded. But the gravel road stayed bare. The diner avoided Cole's name. The deputies stopped patrolling. And the barn? It stood still. Sealed. Silent. Tom never told what he saw the day the agents came. But every morning, he left a thermos of coffee on the church steps, black, unsweetened. The same way Cole used to drink it. Sometimes, he'd walk to the edge of the field and just look. The boards were back up now. Someone had nailed the hatch shut with thick iron bolts and slathered it in red paint. Not to seal it. To warn. Etched faintly into the hatch's rim, where only close eyes could see, were the words. "Do not open. Judson Protocol, permanent containment." Nobody knew who carved it. Nobody dared touch it. In Cole's trailer, the voltmeter still blinked once every 37 seconds. Soft. Unchanging. Not broken, waiting. His notebook remained open on the table. Last entry. "It's not listening to me. It's listening through me." The photo of him stepping into the second barn remained propped in the window, facing out. No one moved it. No one could figure out how it was taken, the angle, the elevation, the perfect frame of his shoulder and boot mid-stride. From 10 feet above the roofline. And no structures nearby. No drones. No ladders. No explanation. One night, rain returned. Same as the night it started. Soft at first, then heavier. In the middle of it, the boards on the barn trembled, not violently. Not enough to rattle the frame. Just enough to sound like breathing. Tom stood in his kitchen, mug in hand, listening. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't need to. At the barn, under sheets of rain, the red-painted hatch clicked once. Then again. Not open. Not closed. Testing. Inside the boards, something shifted. Not crawling. Not scratching. Just waiting. As if deciding if this was the right night. Or the right town. Or the right man. Later, long after the wind had moved on, and the fields fell still again, one last Polaroid appeared. Not in the trailer. Not in the diner. But tacked to the church bulletin board. It showed a third barn. One no one recognized. Labeled only. Intake ID number 7. Would you have waited 50 years before lifting those boards?